Emmy Göring went from richest woman in Nazi Germany to poor widow of a war criminal. Born Emma Sonnemann in 1893, she came from a wealthy chocolate manufacturing family and trained as an actress. In 1932, she met Hermann Göring, a rising Nazi leader, and quickly became part of Hitler's inner circle. By 1934, Emmy adopted a prominent public role as the unofficial First Lady of the Third Reich at state events, receptions and ceremonies, especially before Hitler married Eva Braun, whom Emmy disliked and openly snubbed. Fully aware of the regime's crimes, she lived in extreme luxury at their estate, Karinhall, surrounded by stolen art, never bothered by the origins of her wealth. Their only child, Edda, born in 1938 and named after Mussolini's daughter, was spoiled with lavish gifts, like a 50-meter-long replica of Frederick the Great's palace Sans Souci, and had Hitler as her godfather. After the war, Emmy was arrested by the Americans and briefly detained with her daughter in one of their former properties, Weldenstein Castle. She was convicted by a German denazification court in 1947 and sentenced to a year in a labor camp. There she suffered from chronic illness and caused trouble by decorating her cell with portraits of Göring. After her release, she lived poorly in a small Munich apartment, never renouncing her husband, whom she described as noble and misunderstood. She insisted that if he had led Germany, there would have been no war or persecution. Emmy died in 1973. Edda Göring later had a relationship with journalist Gerd Heidemann, who became known for the forged Hitler diaries scandal. Edda kept in contact with old Nazi associates, like former SS generals Karl Wolff and Wilhelm Mohnke, who had defended the Reich Chancellery during Berlin's final battle. Edda also tried, unsuccessfully, to reclaim her father's confiscated estate from the Bavarian government. A staunch defender of her father's legacy, she died in 2018, the same year as Himmler's daughter. Magda Göbbels, often referred to as the true First Lady of National Socialism, was born in Berlin in 1901. Her early years included a move to Brussels, though the family was forced to flee back to Germany in 1914. As a young woman in Berlin, Magda had a relationship with Chaim Alosorov, a passionate Zionist. But by 1930, she became involved with the Nazi Party after attending a rally led by Joseph Goebbels, whom she married the following year. Her apartment in Berlin soon became a gathering place for Nazi leadership, including Hitler, with whom she formed a close personal bond. As the wife of the propaganda minister, Magda fully embraced her role in the regime. She and Josef had 6 children and became the poster family of Nazi domestic ideals, with Magda winning the Cross of Honor of the German Mother. Despite her image as the loyal matriarch, the marriage was turbulent, and both engaged in numerous affairs. Hitler personally intervened to keep the couple together, arranging staged photographs to preserve their public image. Though outwardly loyal to Hitler, she became disillusioned as the tide of war turned, lamenting that he no longer listens to reason. Still, she remained publicly devoted, even excusing her husband's anti-Semitism as obedience to the Führer. As Berlin fell in 1945, Magda followed Hitler into the Führerbunker with her family. Refusing several offers to evacuate her children, she chose instead to die alongside her husband. After sedating their 6 children and administering cyanide, she and Josef took their own lives in the Chancellery Garden. Her son Harald Quandt from her first marriage survived, becoming a wealthy industrialist. Gerda Bormann was the wife of Martin Bormann, Adolf Hitler's private secretary. Her father, Walter Buch, became the chief judge of the Nazi Party in 1927, which pushed him into the top leadership ranks. Less than a year later, 19-year-old Gerda married Martin Bormann, with Hitler and Rudolf Hess as witnesses. She joined the NSDAP herself in 1929. Gerda and Martin had 10 children, but their marriage was difficult. Bormann was frequently unfaithful and humiliated Gerda for her tallness. Gerda shared her husband's political views and strongly supported him. She originated the idea of the Volksnotehe, an idea to counter Germany's wartime population losses by abolishing monogamy in favor of state-supported polygamy. She even pushed for multiple parallel marriages as a national duty. Every worthy man in society should have the legal right to several wives. She also pushed for the equal status of illegitimate children and wanted the term adultery removed from the German language. Draft laws required every German woman to bear 4 children. Gerda Bormann was also a radical anti-Semite. In her letters to Martin, she freely expressed hatred for what she called international Jewry. As the Third Reich collapsed, Gerda fled to South Tyrol, while Martin remained in Hitler's bunker in Berlin. Diagnosed with cancer, Gerda died from chemotherapy poisoning in 1946. She entrusted her children to the priest Theodor Schmitz, who later adopted them. Margarete Himmler, the wife of Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, was 7 years older than him. They met in 1927 during one of his lectures, and as a blonde, blue-eyed nurse, Margarete embodied Himmler's vision of the ideal wife. Although their relationship was strained due to his work and later infidelities, Margarete remained loyal and managed their household with strict discipline. Himmler hesitated to introduce her to his family because she was older, a Protestant and a divorcee, which caused friction. No family members attended their wedding. Margarete joined the Nazi Party in 1928 and hosted social gatherings for SS wives, but was unpopular. Baldur von Schirach recalled that Himmler was completely dominated at home and constantly had to bend to her will. According to Lina Heydrich, Margarete was narrow-minded and suffered from agoraphobia. In 1941, she discovered her husband's affair with his secretary and mistress, Hedwig Potthast, but remained loyal to him. Margarete was very close to her daughter Gudrun, and both were arrested in May 1945. They were held in internment camps across Italy, France, and Germany. Margarete claimed to have had no connection to her husband's activities during interrogations. In 1953, Margarete was sentenced to 30 days of punitive labor, lost her pension and voting rights. She spent her final years in Munich with Gudrun, who stayed loyal to Nazi ideology, actively defended her father's legacy, and became involved with neo-Nazi groups supporting former SS members. Daughter Gudrun later even married Wolf-Dieter Burwitz, a prominent figure in the far-right NPD party. Hedwig Potthast was Heinrich Himmler's private secretary and later his mistress, with whom she had 2 children, Helge and Nanette. She began working for him in 1936 and became his lover by 1938. The two had a discreet relationship, and in 1944 Himmler had a house built for her in Schönau am Königssee using party funds. Potthast was friends with other high-ranking Nazi wives, including Lina Heydrich and Gerda Bormann. By the war's end, she hid in Rosenheim and was arrested by US forces in July 1945. She later remarried, changed her name, and withdrew from public life, refusing to discuss Himmler's crimes or her own awareness of them. She died in 1994. Her son Helge, who suffered from chronic health issues, died in 2005, while her daughter Nanette, a medical doctor, passed away in 2000. Eva Braun was the mistress and briefly the wife of Adolf Hitler. She met Hitler in 1929 at the age of 17 while working for a Nazi Party photographer. Their relationship remained hidden from the public eye, largely because Hitler believed a public romance would damage his image and lose him female supporters. Isolated and often neglected by Hitler, Braun attempted suicide twice in the early years of their relationship. By 1936, she had become a permanent presence at Hitler's residence, the Berghof, leading a secluded life throughout the war. Despite being at the heart of Hitler's inner circle, Eva was excluded from official functions until 1944, when her sister Gretl married SS officer Hermann Fegelein. Braun was treated with condescension by women like Emmy Göring, and Hitler personally demanded she treat Eva with respect. On April 29, 1945, in the Führerbunker, she and Hitler married in a brief ceremony witnessed by top aides. Less than 2 days later, they took their own lives, Braun by cyanide and Hitler by gunshot. She left no children, and their marriage was Hitler's final gesture to reward her lifelong devotion. The German public only learned about their relationship after their deaths. Gretl Braun, Eva Braun's younger sister, was a Berghof regular in Hitler's inner circle. In 1944, she married SS Gruppenführer Hermann Fegelein, Hitler's direct link to the SS. The wedding, held at Berchtesgaden, was attended by top Nazi officials, including Himmler and Bormann. Gretl later accompanied her sister Eva to the Reich Chancellery in January 1945, but returned to Obersalzberg in early February, just weeks before the collapse of the regime. Her husband was executed in the final days of the war for desertion. A week after Hitler and Eva's suicides, Gretl gave birth to a daughter whom she named Eva in memory of her sister. After the war, Gretl's personal archives like photographs, films, letters, and Hitler-Eva correspondence were hidden at Fischhorn Castle. She eventually disclosed their location to a US counterintelligence agent posing as a German refugee, leading to the materials being confiscated and sent to Washington. She lived quietly in Bavaria and never denounced Nazism. Her daughter Eva apparently took her own life in 1971 at age 26, while Gretl lived until 1987. Anna von Ribbentrop was the wife of Nazi Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop and the daughter of champagne magnate Otto Henkel. She met Joachim during a tennis match and married him in 1920. The marriage was considered a social mismatch by her aristocratic family. Her mother even despised Ribbentrop, but Anna remained supportive of her husband. The couple settled in Berlin and had 5 children, including Adolf von Ribbentrop, born in 1935 and named after his godfather Adolf Hitler. Anna joined the Nazi Party in 1932 and was seen as stubborn and dominant. Apparently, she was the one who pushed her husband into joining the Nazi Party. Following Germany's defeat, Anna von Ribbentrop was arrested and held at the Dachau internment camp. She and her husband had amassed great wealth, much of it from her own inheritance. After her husband's conviction and execution for war crimes in 1946, she fought hard in the courts to retain her assets and devoted the rest of her life to defending his legacy. She published works aiming to exonerate him and repeatedly denounced the verdicts as nothing more than victor's justice. Unrepentant to the end, Anna von Ribbentrop died in 1973. Of her 5 children, only Rudolf von Ribbentrop, who served in the Waffen-SS and later published a memoir about his father in 2008, is widely known. The lives of the other children remain largely obscure. Henriette von Schirach, born 1913 in Munich, was the daughter of Hitler's photographer Heinrich Hoffmann, whose propaganda shaped her early Nazi devotion. In 1932, she married Baldur von Schirach, Hitler youth leader, with Hitler himself as a wedding witness in his private apartment. Joining the Nazi Party, Henriette lived lavishly in Munich and Vienna, where Baldur became Gauleiter in 1940. Their wealth, including Castle Aspenstein, came partly from stolen Jewish assets. As Vienna's Nazi elite, they oversaw Jewish deportations. In 1943, Henriette visited the occupied Netherlands, where she witnessed Jewish women and children being loaded for deportation. Disturbed, she reported it, directly confronting Hitler at the Berghof, his holiday home. He dismissed her concerns as sentimentality and cut her off. After this, both Henriette and Baldur were socially ostracized by Nazi leadership, and Goebbels mocked their late-found compassion. By 1944, fearing Allied bombs, Henriette fled with her kids to Castle Aspenstein. Vienna fell to the Red Army in April 1945. After the war, Baldur was sentenced to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity. Castle Aspenstein was confiscated and Henriette was arrested by US forces, held for over a year and forced to clean toilets with Nazi flags. Henriette divorced Baldur in 1950 after becoming involved with Alfred H. Jacob. The relationship ended in scandal after Jacob lost custody of her children due to abuse. Only her son Richard remained with her as she moved to Munich. In 1958, she went to London to plead for a reduction of Baldur's sentence, portraying him as a misguided idealist. Of her 4 children, Robert became a businessman and fathered Ferdinand von Schirach, a prominent author. Richard became a sinologist and author, Klaus became a lawyer, and Angelika Benedicta reportedly became a painter, though little is known about her. Lina Heydrich, wife of SS Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich, played an active and influential role in his rise within the Nazi hierarchy. Lina was politically engaged early on, joining the Nazi Party in 1929 after attending a rally where Hitler spoke. She met Reinhard Heydrich in 1930, married him a year later and had 4 children. Lina was instrumental in steering Heydrich toward a career in the SS. Through her family's contacts, especially Baroness von Eberstein, she helped secure him a meeting with Heinrich Himmler, which led to his recruitment. As Reinhard ascended within the Nazi ranks, Lina enjoyed increasing prestige and wealth, especially after they moved to a lavish castle near Prague, when Reinhard became Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia in 1941. After her husband's assassination in 1942, Hitler granted Lina a pension, a country estate and insurance benefits, making her financially secure. Testimonies later accused her of abusing Jewish forced laborers assigned to her estate. Tragedy struck when her son Klaus died in a traffic accident in 1943. Lina later fled from Czechoslovakia with her children to escape the Soviet advance. She entrusted 2 of her children to German soldiers and gave a third to friends on the island of Fehmarn, where she also settled. Post-war, Lina was cleared during denazification in Germany, but sentenced to life imprisonment in absentia by a Czech court, a sentence she avoided by remaining in the West. Lina remarried in 1965 to change her surname, yet continued to publicly defend her first husband. She denied his involvement in the Holocaust, claiming that the Wannsee Conference was only about Jewish resettlement. She died in 1985. Her children integrated into post-war society, with some publicly addressing their father's legacy. While daughter Mate opened a clothing shop and named her son Reinhard, Silke insisted on keeping her name. Gerda Heydrich wanted to publish his mom's memoir again with new parts, making people wonder if he was trying to clean up his dad's image. Ilse Hess, wife of Rudolf Hess, Hitler's former deputy, was a devoted Nazi and lifelong admirer of Hitler. Coming from a wealthy, conservative and nationalist background, she was one of the first women to study at the University of Munich. She joined the Nazi Party in 1921 and introduced Hess to Hitler, who encouraged their union. They married in December 1927, with Hitler serving as the godfather to their only son, Wolf Rüdiger. After Rudolf Hess's unauthorized flight to Scotland in 1941, Ilse relocated with her son to Hindelang and remained there through the war's end. Following the Nuremberg trials, Ilse was interned but released in 1948. She later opened a pension in the Allgäu and continued to support far-right causes, including the Stille Hilfe, a relief organization for fugitive SS members. Until her death, she remained loyal to Hitler and the Nazi worldview. In 1952, she published a book of letters through a far-right press, never renouncing Nazism. Her son, Wolf Rüdiger Hess, became an architect and a vocal defender of his father's memory. He rejected the official account of Rudolf Hess's suicide in Spandau prison, insisting the British Secret Intelligence Service had murdered him to prevent his parole. He wrote 3 books about his father's life, claiming that his father was silenced to protect post-war Allied narratives. He died of a stroke at age 63, leaving behind 3 children.